Have you ever wondered why, despite years of prayer, meditation, and spiritual practice, you still feel like God is somehow distant, just out of reach? What if I told you that the very thing you've been searching for has been speaking to you all along, not from the heavens above, but from the deepest chamber of your own being? For most of your life, you've probably been taught to look outward for divine guidance. You've been conditioned to believe that God's voice comes from external sources through religious texts, spiritual teachers, or perhaps in moments of quiet desperation when you cry out for help. But what if this entire approach has been keeping you from the most profound spiritual awakening you could ever experience? What if the voice of God isn't something you need to reach for, but something you need to recognize within yourself? Has this ever happened to you? You face a crisis, maybe a health scare, a financial disaster, or a relationship falling apart, and you pray with every fiber of your being, asking God for intervention, for a sign, for anything. Yet somehow the silence feels deafening. You wonder if you're not worthy enough, not faithful enough, not spiritual enough to receive an answer. But here's the revolutionary truth that changes everything. God has been answering you all along. The problem is, you've been listening for an external voice when the divine has been speaking from the very consciousness that asks the question. But before we begin, please hit the like button and let me know where in the world you're watching from today. It's always fascinating seeing who's joining us from around the world. And if you haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any of our future videos. What you're about to discover might surprise you because it completely dismantles everything conventional religion has taught us about our relationship with the divine. When you finally hear God speak from within, something extraordinary happens. It's not a booming voice from the clouds or a mystical experience reserved for saints and prophets. It's a profound recognition, a sudden knowing that the presence you've been seeking outside yourself is actually the very essence of who you are. This isn't blasphemy or spiritual arrogance. It's the same truth that Jesus revealed when he declared, "I am," demonstrating that God's presence wasn't separate from his being, but was his true identity. Stay with me until the end. Because understanding this principle doesn't just change your spiritual life, it transforms your entire existence when you stop begging a distant deity for help and recognize that the divine voice has always been speaking through your deepest intuition, your clearest moments of knowing, your most authentic self. Everything shifts. Your prayers transform from desperate pleas into powerful recognitions. Your spiritual journey stops being a climb towards something you don't have and becomes an unveiling of what has always been present. The moment this truth begins to awaken in you, years of spiritual frustration start to make sense. All those times you felt unheard weren't because God was ignoring you. It's because you were looking in the wrong direction. Think about this for a moment. Every single day, probably dozens of times, you make declarations about yourself without even realizing the profound impact these words carry. You wake up and say, "I am tired." You look at your bank account and think, "I am broke." You feel a pain in your body and declare, "I am sick." These seem like innocent observations about your current circumstances, right? But here's the hidden truth that most people never grasp. You're not describing reality, you're actually creating it. When God speaks from within and you finally hear it, one of the first revelations that floods your consciousness is understanding what I am truly means. This isn't about your personality, your history, your job title, or the roles you play in life. Those are all temporary costumes you wear, masks that change depending on the situation. The I am that speaks from within isn't connected to any of these surface identities. It's something infinitely deeper, infinitely more powerful. It's consciousness itself expressing through the unique form that is you. Timeless, boundless, eternal presence made visible in this moment. If you want to continue exploring these transformative spiritual principles, subscribe to the channel. I share practical insights that go beyond theory and actually shift your experience of life. The transformation in your mindset begins when you realize you've been unconsciously attaching this sacred phrase to every limitation you experience. Behind the scenes of your daily life, there's been a constant stream of declarations shaping your reality in ways you never understood. I am not good enough. I am afraid. I am stuck. Each time you speak these words, you're not just making observations. you're claiming these temporary conditions as your true identity. You're taking the infinite and binding it to the finite. You're saying that the divine presence expressing as you is, limited, lacking, or broken. Has this ever happened to you? You've tried everything to change a situation, worked harder, prayed more fervently, sought advice from others, yet nothing seems to shift. The reason is simple but profound. You can't transform what you keep claiming as your identity. If you wake every morning declaring, "I am struggling," then struggle becomes the very fabric of your experience. Not because struggle is your destiny, but because you've crowned it as your truth. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic because what you're about to understand will reveal why some people seem to effortlessly attract healing, abundance, and breakthrough moments, while others remain stuck despite their best efforts. The difference isn't in their circumstances or even in how hard they work. It's in how they use these two powerful words. When you attach "I am" to truth rather than to temporary conditions, reality itself begins to reorganize around that higher consciousness. You're not trying to change things anymore. You're recognizing what has always been true beneath the surface of appearances. Write in the comments, "I'm recognizing my true identity." If this perspective is beginning to shift something inside you, the most liberating revelation that comes from hearing God speak within is this: your suffering has never been about your circumstances. It's been about mistaken identity. Behind the scenes of every struggle you've ever faced, there's been a fundamental confusion about who you really are. You've been attaching the eternal essence of your being to temporary conditions, claiming that the infinite presence expressing as you is somehow limited, broken, or lacking. And this single error in perception has been the source of every experience of pain, fear, and limitation you've endured. Think about the impact of this realization on your entire life, Jew. Rennie. For years, maybe decades, you've been trying to fix yourself. You've sought healing for your body, solutions for your finances, answers to your relationship problems. You've prayed for God to change your circumstances, to remove obstacles, to make things better. But what if there's nothing to fix? What if the problem isn't your circumstances at all, but the fact that you've been claiming those circumstances as your identity? When the divine voice awakens within you, something extraordinary happens with healing. You suddenly understand that you don't heal the body in the way you've always thought. You're not making something sick become well. You're recognizing a truth that has always been present. The I of your being, the consciousness, the presence, the essence of who you are, was never sick to begin with. The body may display symptoms. Absolutely. Pain might be real in the physical experience, but that's not you. That's not your true identity. The infinite presence that looks through your eyes, that breathes through your lungs, that animates this physical form. That presence is whole, complete, and perfect right now. This isn't positive thinking or denial of what's happening in your physical experience. It's a profound shift in understanding what you are versus what you have. You have a body, you are not the body. You have emotions, you are not the emotions. You have thoughts, you are not the thoughts. The I am that God speaks as you is beyond all of these temporary changing conditions. And when you finally hear this truth spoken from within, when it becomes more real to you than the symptoms or circumstances, that's when transformation happens naturally, without force, without struggle. The hidden truth behind every miraculous healing throughout history has been this: recognition. People weren't healed because they convinced God to intervene. They were healed because they stopped identifying their true self with the condition. They heard the divine voice within declaring wholeness, and they recognized it as more true than what their physical senses were telling them. Now I want to go even deeper into this topic because understanding the mechanics of how this actually works in your daily life changes everything. When you wake up tomorrow morning and your first thought is about pain or limitation, you'll have a decision to make, a choice that determines whether you continue in suffering or step into the freedom that's always been available. Drop a comment saying, "I am not my circumstances." If you're beginning to see through the illusion of false identity, here's where most people get stuck on their spiritual journey, and it's a distinction that changes everything once you understand it. There's a massive difference between affirmation and recognition, and confusing the two keeps people trapped in cycles of effort without breakthrough. Affirmations are statements you repeat, hoping to make something true. that you currently believe is false. You affirm, I am abundant while feeling broke. You declare I am healthy while experiencing pain. You say I am loved while feeling utterly alone. And behind the scenes, there's this constant struggle, this exhausting effort to convince yourself and the universe that something is real. When your entire experience seems to prove otherwise, recognition is completely different. It doesn't try to create anything. It simply acknowledges what has always been present, what is eternally true, regardless of temporary appearances. When God speaks from within and you hear it, you're not creating a new reality, you are recognizing the reality that exists beneath the surface of all conditions. This is why affirmations often feel forced and leave you feeling more drained than powered. You're fighting against what you perceive as true. But recognition rests in what is true, independent of perception or circumstances. The impact of understanding this distinction transforms how you approach every challenge. You stop trying to make things happen and start recognizing what already is. You're not climbing toward wholeness, you're acknowledging the wholeness that's always been your foundation. One path exhausts you with endless effort, the other allows you to rest in truth. This brings us to something incredibly practical that you can use immediately, and it might be the most powerful tool you'll ever discover. When crisis hits, when fear grips your chest, when panic floods your mind, when circumstances seem overwhelming and impossible, there's a practice that interrupts the entire cycle of reaction. It's called the pause. Instead of immediately reacting, instead of frantically searching for solutions, instead of letting your mind spiral into worst-case scenarios, you simply stop. You pause everything. In that pause, you ask yourself one question. What is the truth of my being right now? Not what appears to be happening, not what you're afraid might happen, not what the circumstances seem to prove, but what is eternally, unchangeably true about the I am that you are. And here's what you discover every single time you genuinely ask this question. The answer is always the same. The I am is whole. The I am is complete. The I am is safe, supplied, and perfect, not because you made it so through positive you thinking, but because this is the nature of infinite presence, which is what you actually are beneath all the temporary identities you've been wearing. Now I want to go even deeper into this topic, because when you start practicing this pause in your daily life, you begin to notice something remarkable happening. The problems that seem so solid, so real, so impossible to overcome start to shift in ways you could never have orchestrated through human effort alone. Type, I choose to pause in the comments if you're ready to interrupt the pattern of reaction and rest in truth. Something profound happens when you consistently practice this pause and begin hearing God speak from within. You start to see other people completely differently. The entire framework of separation that's governed your relationships, your judgments, your fears about others, begins to crumble. You've been living as if you're a separate island, disconnected from everyone around you, competing for limited resources, protecting yourself from potential harm. But when the divine voice awakens in your consciousness, you realize this has all been an elaborate illusion. The same I am that expresses as you is the true identity of every person you encounter. Behind the personalities, the behaviors, the words they speak, the actions they take, there's the same infinite presence looking through different eyes. This doesn't mean everyone is behaving from that awareness. Most people are completely asleep to their true nature, operating from fear, lack, and separation. But their true identity remains unchanged, just as yours does, regardless of how unconscious you've been. The impact of this revelation on your daily interactions is extraordinary. You stop taking things personally. When someone lashes out at you, you recognize they're not attacking you. They're lost in the dream of separation, acting from a false sense of self. You don't need to defend yourself or retaliate because you see through the illusion to the truth beneath. This isn't about being passive or allowing harmful behavior. It's about responding from wisdom rather than reacting from wounded ego. Now I want to go even deeper into this topic, because when you understand that separation is an illusion, something else becomes crystal clear. Your source has never been external. Your entire life you've believed that your supply comes from your job, your clients, your investments, your spouse, your parents, the economy, the government. You've lived with constant anxiety about these sources disappearing or failing you. Behind the scenes of every financial worry has been this belief that something outside yourself is responsible for your well-being. If this video resonated with you or shifted your perspective, hit the like button. It helps others who are searching for these truths find their way here. But when God speaks from within, you hear the most liberating truth you'll ever encounter. The infinite I Am is your source, not your employer, not your business, not any person or institution. These are merely channels through which supply flows, and channels can change, dry up, or multiply without affecting the source itself. The source is consciousness, the divine presence expressing as your being. And that source is infinite, inexhaustible, always flowing. This mindset transformation doesn't mean you quit your job or ignore practical responsibilities. It means you stop giving power to circumstances and recognize where power actually resides. When you live from this consciousness, something remarkable begins happening. Abundance starts appearing through unexpected channels. Opportunities you never pursued, connections that seem coincidental, ideas that arrive fully formed. You're not manipulating or forcing anything. You're simply aligned with the natural flow of infinite supply that has always been available. Share my source is within in the comments. If this understanding is beginning to shift your relationship with abundance, this understanding of internal source doesn't just transform your relationship with money and resources, it revolutionizes how you show up in every relate. Unshakable. Think about the hidden truth behind most relationship problems. People enter partnerships seeking completion. They feel empty, so they look for someone to fill that void. They feel unloved, so they need someone to love them. They feel incomplete, so they search for their other half. And this creates an exhausting dynamic where two incomplete people try to extract wholeness from each other, which is impossible. When you hear God speak from within and recognize that I Am is infinite love itself, the entire foundation of relationships shifts. You're not seeking anymore. You're not trying to get love. You're expressing the love that you are. You're not looking for completion because you've discovered you're already whole. The emptiness you felt wasn't real lack. It was simply forgetting your true nature. And the moment you remember, relationships transform from transactions into expressions. Instead of two people trading neediness, you have the sharing of fullness. Instead of demanding that someone make you happy, you bring joy that naturally overflows from recognizing what you are. This doesn't mean you don't desire partnership or connection. It means you desire it from a completely different place. You're not desperate. You're not clinging. You're not afraid of being alone because you've discovered you're never actually alone. The infinite presence is always with you as you expressing through you. Has this ever happened to you? You finally let go of needing someone and suddenly the right person appears. That's not coincidence. That's what happens when you stop operating from lack and start living from wholeness. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic because this same principle transforms how you experience work. For most people, work is survival. It's something they must do to pay bills, to get by, to maintain their lifestyle. There's constant pressure, stress about performance, fear of losing the job, exhaustion from forcing themselves through tasks they don't enjoy. Behind the scenes of this struggle is the belief that work is separate from your true purpose, that it's just a means to an end. But when the divine voice speaks from within, work becomes something entirely different. It stops being about survival and becomes about expression. Your job isn't something you must do anymore. It's how infinite intelligence and creativity flow into visible form through you. You're not working for money. You're allowing the divine presence that you are to express itself in the world, and money flows naturally as a result. The tasks that once felt heavy become lighter because you're not doing them alone. You're not relying solely on human effort and limited thinking. You're an open channel for something far greater than your personal abilities. Type I am an open channel in the comments if you're ready to let work become expression rather than survival. When this transformation deepens in your consciousness, one of the most liberating shifts happens in how you see yourself and others. Judgment, that constant inner critic that's been running commentary on everything you do and everything others do, begins to dissolve. Not because you force yourself to be less judgmental, but because you finally understand what judgment actually is. It's one false identity criticizing another false identity. It's the ego attacking the ego, personal sense judging personal sense, while the true I am of your being watches it all, without participating. Think about the impact this has on your daily experience. When someone cuts you off in traffic, when a sea orca says something hurtful, when a family member acts selfishly, your automatic reaction has always been judgment. But when you hear God speak from within, you recognize something profound. These people aren't their behaviors. They're acting from fear, anger, or greed because they've forgotten who they truly are. They're operating from a false sense of identity, just as you once did, just as you still do sometimes when you forget. Their true nature, the I am that they are, is the same divine presence that you are. They're just asleep to it. This understanding doesn't mean you tolerate abuse or ignore harmful behavior. It means you respond from wisdom rather than wounded ego. You set boundaries from clarity rather than anger. Behind the scenes of this shift, there's a quiet compassion that emerges. Not pity, but genuine recognition that everyone is on this journey of remembering who they are. And most people are still deep in the dream of separation. The same compassion extends to yourself. When you make mistakes, when you fall short of your ideals, when you act from fear instead of love, you stop the vicious cycle of self-judgment. You recognize that the mistake happened in the dream of personal identity, not in your true nature. The I am, that you are never failed, never sinned, never fell short. You simply forgot yourself for a moment, and now you remember again. Now I want to go even deeper into this topic because what we're really talking about here is integration. The point where this understanding stops being something you think about occasionally and becomes your natural state of being. In the beginning, you practice recognizing I am during meditation or when facing challenges. You consciously remember the truth. But as God's voice becomes clearer within you, something remarkable happens. The practice becomes your identity. You don't switch it on and off anymore. You wake as I am. You walk as I am. You work, love, speak, and rest as I am. It's no longer something you do. It's who you are. Right? I am integrating this truth in the comments. If you're experiencing this shift from practice to being, this integration creates something that might seem miraculous to others, but feels perfectly natural to you. Problems begin to dissolve without the struggle you once thought was necessary. Think about how you've approached challenges throughout your life. You've analyzed, strategized, fought, manipulated, forced, and exhausted yourself trying to fix things. You've believed that solutions require massive human effort, that breakthrough demands endless grinding, that transformation happens through willpower and determination. But when you live from the consciousness of I am, when you consistently hear God speak from within, something completely different happens. The problems that seemed impossible start to shift on their own, not because you're doing nothing, you're still taking inspired action when needed, but because you're no longer blocking the natural flow of resolution with false identity. Behind the scenes, there's been this constant interference pattern created by identifying as limited, lacking, or broken. The moment you stop claiming those identities, the interference stops, and what needs to happen, happens naturally, often through channels you never expected, and couldn't have orchestrated through personal effort alone. Needs get met through synchronistic encounters. Solutions appear as sudden insights that feel like they drop from nowhere. Doors open that you didn't even know existed. And here's what makes this so different from the law of attraction or manifestation techniques you might have tried. You're not trying to make anything happen. You're simply being what you are, and reality organizes itself around that truth. The impact of this shift on your entire life journey cannot be overstated. You move from exhausting effort to effortless being, from constant struggle to natural flow. This is the ultimate freedom that Jesus demonstrated when he walked the earth. He wasn't a limited human trying to become spiritual through discipline and effort. He was spirit appearing in human form, fully engaged in human experience while resting in divine truth. He was the wave that knew itself as the ocean, and this is exactly what happens when you finally hear God speak from within and live from that recognition. You're not trying to be spiritual anymore. You're not working toward enlightenment. You're not climbing a ladder to reach some higher state. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic because understanding this intellectually is one thing, but actually living it, embodying it in the midst of real challenges, financial pressure, health concerns, relationship difficulties, that's where the rubber meets the road. That's where you discover whether this truth is just a beautiful philosophy or a practical power that transforms every aspect of your existence. Share "I'm the wave, knowing the ocean" in the comments. Clear's throat. If this understanding of ultimate freedom is resonating with something deep inside you, you know if you've made it this far with me, I have a feeling this message found you at exactly the right moment in your journey. These aren't easy concepts to stay with. They challenge everything we've been taught about who we are and how life works. But something inside you recognized the truth in these words, didn't it? That's the divine voice speaking, confirming what you've always known beneath the noise of the world. If you found value in this exploration and want to continue deepening your understanding of these spiritual principles, I'd love to have you subscribe to the channel. I share content like this regularly, practical wisdom that you can actually apply to transform your daily experience, not just theory that sounds nice but doesn't change anything. These teachings are meant to be lived, and I'm here walking this path right alongside you. Leave a comment saying this message was meant for me, so I know you made it all the way through. I genuinely read the comments and love seeing who's on this journey with us. It creates a beautiful community of people who are waking up to their true nature. And if this video resonated with you, go ahead and hit that like button. It helps this content reach others who might be searching for exactly what you just discovered. Sometimes one video can completely shift someone's perspective, and your simple action of liking helps make that connection possible. There's a video right here that takes this even further, exploring how to actually apply these principles. When you're in the middle of a crisis and everything feels overwhelming, click and continue with me over there. Let's keep going deeper together.